The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Well, happy Monday, June 24th, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day in some kind of way. You are figuring out a way to beat the heat. Good luck with that, right? It's hot out there. I don't know how anyone I'm going to use a great debater's quote, Denzel talking to the young buck and reminding him that it's his job and every teacher in this school to help you find and keep your righteous mind. I love that quote. I don't know how anyone with a righteous mind does not believe that we have an environmental challenge, task, and problem on our hands. Climate, this whole climate issue and the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere getting hotter is real. And I don't know how you can't possibly believe that. That's just me talking, but I don't know how that's possible. But at any rate, welcome. I'm James Gailliard. This is James Gailliard Show. We're here live in studio every Monday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. right here on Choice FM, 92.1 FM on your dial. As always, I'm going to ask you to share this with someone. And this is what we do on our show. On our show, we push back against the notion that we can entertain our way out of the crisis that we're in. We really push to say we need to educate people. And we also push back on the narrative of emotionalism. And I try to just give people data, just actual facts. You know, it's unbelievable to me that we have a population of people that just refuse to embrace the facts. I mean, I get it to a certain extent because they won't embrace the facts because that means that the lifestyle they've become accustomed to, the way they've become accustomed to it, will potentially no longer be theirs. And you just might actually have to work for what you have and not receive it out of entitlement. So I get to a certain extent why people push back, but it's still disheartening for me. And so I came across an interview with Reggie Jackson. Now, some of my young listeners, y'all don't even know who Reggie Jackson is. I'm from Philly, and Reggie Jackson went to high school and came from a township right next to Philadelphia Township. Right around Cheltenham Township, Abington Township, right up in there. He was a Major League Baseball player, one of the best to have ever played the game. Matter of fact, he's now in the Hall of Fame, got inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1993. His name is actually Reginald Martinez Jackson. We always knew him as Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson is now 78 years old. Reggie Jackson was born in 1946, and he played 21 seasons of professional baseball. And he was recently back in Birmingham, Alabama, and he was in an open forum in Birmingham, and they began asking him some questions. And much to my surprise, Reggie Jackson went in. So what I want to do, opening up the show today, is I want to play some of this. I want to play it, pause it, so we can talk about this. And so let's check out what Reggie Jackson was talking about.
How emotional is it for you to come back to a play that you played with one of the greatest teams around?
Alex, when people ask me a question like that, it's like...
Hello, Congressman Byron Donalds from Florida. Congressman Byron Donalds, where art thou, sir? The man who in Philadelphia a few weeks ago said black people are better off as a result of Jim Crow. Well, here is a black man in the person of one of the greatest baseball players to have ever lived, Reggie Jackson, saying, I would never want to do it again. This is what he said. I wrote it down. I wouldn't ask anyone else to do it again. I don't want anyone to think that because I went through it, it made me a better person. Here's a person. So this is what I'm trying to do. It's a couple themes I want us to see. The first theme is we have to push back against this narrative of folk talking about stuff they didn't live. Folk talking about stuff they don't know anything about. Byron Donalds don't know anything about this stuff, but because he says something that is in alignment with an agenda of a group of people that really desperately want to keep a significant part of our population enslaved and without opportunity and without equity, we grab a hold of it as if it is truth, as if it is gospel, when the reality of it is it's just a lie. It's just a person who has weaseled their way to some level of status, getting a microphone and an audience, and then communicating that which is on their agenda that's in their best interest and no one else's best interest. That's the first thing I want us to pay attention to. Like, don't tell me about things you know nothing about. And it's interesting. So this is just Reggie Jackson talking. And then the other thing I want you to, this is going to be a theme as he talks. The other thing he says is, fortunately for me, I had players and teammates to get me through it. It's a very important concept. He was amongst the only African-American players when he began playing. So when he says coach, teammates, players, he's talking about white teammates and white players. One of the things that we don't talk enough about in this dialogue of equity is that there is going to have to be a remnant of people that are not black or Latino or Asian. It's got to be a remnant of people that are not black or brown or yellow, that are white, that are going to have to be willing to sacrifice their status, their social connections, to just simply do what is right, to speak truth to power. It cannot just be people of color. It's got to be other groups of people that are looking at this saying, this is just not right. And we live in a culture now. Let me tell you the culture we live in. We live in a culture where you got that 30% that are like far, far right, and then those that are somewhere in the middle or more to the left that may be white are quiet because they don't want to sacrifice, their lifestyle, their social fabric, their opportunities. I remember having conversations post Donald Trump with white elected officials and white leaders, and they would ask me point blank, many of them right here in Rocky Mount, and shout out to everyone in Rocky Mount, Nashville, Raleigh, Durham. Where else do I have people today? Wilson, Tarboro, Roanoke Rapids. Let me know where you're listening from today, if you're able to do that, and share this with somebody. And so we would have conversations. They would say, Pastor, really, honestly, what is it that, in your opinion, can we do to create equity, to create opportunity? And I probably told you all this before. And I said, you know what? Join a black church. Join a predominantly black church. And literally 100% of the time, and we have white members, I'm so grateful for them. They're special. They have courage. They have boldness. They have a lens and a desire toward equity. And they do it in Jesus' name. But many will be like, well, no, if I did that, and literally I've had someone on the school board say to me, if I did that, my daughter will be like the only white little girl in Sunday school. Well, we grew up in a culture where many of us were the onlys. All right, come on, let's go back and listen to some more.
Here.
Stop. So we can't eat because they call them the N-word. They had to bleep it out. I'm going to tell you why I'm raising this. And it's going to feel like shade, but you got to go to data. Get past emotion, go to data. I've been a member of Benvenue Country Club. I believe Benvenue Country Club was founded like in 1918 or 1920 or something like that. I became a member of Benvenue Country Club in Rocky Mount, I don't know. I'm going to say 12 to 15 years ago. It's probably 15 years. I've probably been a member 15 years. The overwhelming majority of that time, I've been the only member of color. Y'all, this is not 50 years ago, 60 years, 70 years ago. Like, it's to this day, when I go to Benvenue Country Club and I see another African-American member, I'm like shocked. To this day, we have institutions that are not necessarily friendly toward the black community. So he's talking about 1963, I believe. They go to the country club and they get told that N can't be in here. And maybe we're not saying that end can't be in here anymore, but we're certainly not making it conducive for people of color to feel comfortable being a member. All right, let's finish listening. Are the white people in our community that are willing to say, if that school, if everyone cannot get the level of education my child is getting in our suburban school, we're gonna have to get our child educated wherever they can, and so we're gonna go to the inner city school. We're not willing. This is what I want you to see. See, this sounds extreme, but it's not. It's not, because this is the real fabric of America. The real fabric of America is that when we see stuff that is wrong, there is a righteous remnant that exists that's willing to speak to that inequity. And so where are our friends that don't necessarily have our hue color that are willing to say something is fundamentally wrong when baseball fields are not available? Something is fundamentally wrong when there's food insecurities in certain communities. Something is fundamentally wrong. And when there's not an access to health care. How many white mothers have you heard talk about the black maternal mortality rate? I mean, real talk. How many white men have you heard talk about the disproportionate diagnosis of black men with prostate cancer? We need people. We all need each other. And we need an element of people, regardless of your race, creed, culture, religion, who's just willing to own that sometimes things are wrong, and we have to have the courage and the boldness to speak to it so that we can be agents of change. All right, let's listen to the rest. Stop. See, this is what I need y'all to see. Now, you're hearing him say, white family let them sleep on his couch until there was threats to burn it down. Let me James Gailliard this and make this real. I am the byproduct of a white mother and a black father. There was a community when I was growing up called the Kensington community. It was a relatively poor white community. And from where we lived to where my maternal grandmother lived was probably about, I don't know, I was so young then. I'm going to say a 20-minute drive. In the course of that 20-minute drive, 25-minute drive, the communities would change. They would go from black communities to Hispanic communities to white communities. I need y'all to hear what I'm saying, because I don't want y'all, you got to start talking about stuff you know about. My grandmother, the only time she could see me is if my mother's brother, her son, drove her to our black community. As a grown man, and I look in this camera and tell you this, never one time, and my maternal grandmother died when I was probably 15 years old. Never one time in my life did I ever step foot in her home. She lived 25 minutes away. Never one time did I sit on her sofa. Never one time did my father drop my mother off. Those times we did have a car running, my dad would drive my mother to about 3 or 4 blocks away. And then my mother would have to walk the distance, because had she been seen with a black man, my grandmother's house would have been firebombed. So there were repeatedly threats of firebombing of houses in Philadelphia. This was in 1975, y'all. He talking about 1963, 1964, 1965, 1975. And he talking about Birmingham. I'm talking about Philadelphia. So when people say, that was so long ago, it doesn't impact us now. What about adverse childhood experiences when, because of racism, a child never gets to really embrace his grandmother? Right? So this has actual day-by-day implications on us. Okay, let's listen to the rest of this. You heard what he said, right? He's like, look, had it not been for some of them folk, listen, you heard what he said. So here's what's what's blowing my mind, though, about this? What's blowing my mind about this is the response. I'm like really blown away by it, because the response to this on media is like this happened, not 50 years ago, but 200 years ago. Family, this was 50 years ago. That is not long. Some of you right now are watching and listening. You're not even 50 years old yet, or just 50 years old. This has happened in your lifetime. And so I say this, we cannot allow a population of people in their cancel culture agenda to try to keep us from waking up. Because if you notice, the far right has made it evil to use the expression be woke. I need to be woke because woke people understand that this did not happen 200 years ago. This happened 50 years ago. In my lifetime, my grandmama's house was threatened to be firebombed because of a black person coming to it. I'm not talking about black people in their houses. I'm talking about in their own family's houses. I'm going to say this one more time. The only time I could ever see my maternal grandmother is when she came to see us. We could never go to see her. Y'all, this did not happen 200 years ago. We need to remember what we're dealing with. We need to remember the challenge of our society and our culture. And today's show, and if you're just tuning in, I'm James Gailliard. This is the James Gailliard Show. I'm here every Monday from 5 to 6. I talk about politics and news and sports and culture and religion because I know we can't entertain ourselves to a better existence. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to challenge the status quo. I'm trying to give us informative things to talk about, to dialogue about, to exchange about, so that we can push forward an agenda to make everyone's life better. Everyone's life better. And so somebody said I'm 46. I'm just looking at some of the comments real quick. Kudos to that manager. Indeed, Ray. Kudos to that manager. We need more people that are righteous and are willing to stand up. Shout out to everybody in Princeville and Nashville and everybody that is chiming in. Listen, go ahead and share this. When we come back, I want to walk us through a quick history lesson over the last few years, maybe the last 35, 40 years, and what we're really dealing with as a society. And then I want to weave in a conversation around economic equity and what that looks like relative to this dialogue and this conversation. So would you tag somebody? Would you let them know what we're doing right now? This is James Gailliard. It's the James Gailliard Show right here on Choice 92.1 FM. We're going to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Hey, family. I'm back. Welcome back. We just got done kind of debriefing together the interview recently with Baseball Hall of Famer and legend Reggie Jackson. I think it's chilling to listen to it. I think it's needed to listen to it. I want to give a shout out to the networks that did not, they wear earpieces and they tell them, they whispered in their ear. They didn't shut him down. They just let the man talk. I think we need more of that in our society. But again, what I'm talking about now relative to this, and I'd love to get your feedback about what you thought about his 3-minute conversation about what he endured as a black man in Major League Baseball. I think what's most telling for me, though, is the media response has been viral. And as much as I'm glad that it's viral, I'm scratching my head that it's viral. And I'm scratching my head that it's viral because I'm like, but we walk in this every day. Did y'all really think we live in a post-racist America? So let me remind you, this was not 200 years ago. He's talking about the 60s. And let me remind you that we've had other situations since then. It was in the 80s. This is still Major League Baseball. It was in the 80s where the general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So how many of y'all were alive in the 80s? Some of us were working. I was finishing up college in the late 80s. So some of us were college students, some of us were working, but most of us were here. It was in the 80s where this is the general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers. is on national television. Al Campanis. Al is on national television, and this is what he says. He says that blacks lack the necessities to be general managers or managers in this game. This was in the 80s. Blacks lack the necessities to be general managers or managers in the game. It was in the 90s, again in Los Angeles, when Rodney King was brutally beaten, right in the city streets, and every officer was acquitted. It was in the mid-90s in Vero Beach, Florida, in an apartment complex. The 90s, y'all, the mid-90s. How many of y'all been around since the mid-90s? An apartment complex that refused to allow reporters, 2 black children, to swim in the community swimming pool. My daughters and granddaughter my daughter, the first daughter and granddaughter, then my daughters went over, and they went over to Benvenue Country Club to jump in the pool. And I told them, look, might as well enjoy it. I don't ever get the chance to do it. So they went over. And when they got home, or it was either when they got home that night or the next day, I was just talking to them, hey, how was it? Was it hot? How were things? They said the service was great. People treated them really great. But this is what they say that was so telling for me. I said, well, was it crowded? And this is literally what they said. It was until we got there. Literally, they said that to me. I said, well, not long after we got there, it kind of. And it's funny because the joke that black people tell. The black people joke we tell is it don't matter how busy the pool is, how crowded the pool is. When we get in, we're going to have it to ourselves. We joke about that, but here it is, 2024, and we still experience it, right? So the surprising thing for me is that people are acting like this is all over and gone with. Y'all, it was in the past few years, that George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, Breonna Taylor shot and killed in her bedroom in Louisville, Ahmaud Arbery murdered while jogging in Georgia. So are we really shocked that that Reggie Jackson couldn't eat in restaurants? He couldn't sleep in hotels. He couldn't hang out in country clubs with his white teammates 56 years ago? Y'all, welcome to America. We are acting like this stuff is over and done with. It's not. It is still flourishing. I really am convinced that until we deal with the original sin of our nation, which is racism, we're never, ever, ever going to become as the nation we could be. What do you think Make America Great Again means? For black people, what does that mean? Make America Great Again. Yeah, to that dog whistle, Make America Great Again is make America back to the time where black people were uncomfortable in major sports. Make America back to the time where Jim Crow was the law of the land. Make America back to the time where we had separate bathrooms, separate fountains, separate schools. That's what MAGA means. Be clear about that. It's not, oh, I'm going to do better on my taxes. No, you don't get away with that. That's not what it means, and you know it. Right? So racism is still. Hank Aaron, back to baseball conversation, once said the difference back then is that they had hoods, and now they have neckties and starched shirts. In the South, Jackson said, you knew they didn't like you. You knew they didn't want you. They didn't hide it. Now racism may not be as overt, but Jackson reminds us, this country this week, don't be naive to think it has gone away or even greatly diminished. Right? Okay, no, you don't. Y'all still don't believe it. Remember, here's how we operate on the James Gailliard Show. Data. We operate with data because data will deal with your emotions. Data will get you to a point where you can't act like you don't know what you know. And then if you act like you don't know what you know, what we know is you're being governed and driven by a greater demon. So here's my argument. My argument is that racism is still alive and well in our nation. The racism that Reggie Jackson described in his interview recently. And the question now becomes on the data. Is there any data to prove that there is equity and equality in Major League Baseball so that Reggie Jackson could say this no longer is the issue? So here we go. Remember I told you a comment was made that blacks lack the necessity to be managers? Of the 30 Major League Baseball teams, you have 2 black managers in baseball, and you have 1 black general manager. And there has never been a majority black owner. To this day, 30 teams. That means you have positions around general managers and lots of positions on managers. You have 3 people out of 30. And that's really 3 positions out of probably 100 positions or more. So you're talking about 3%. So, matter of fact, Reggie Jackson even talks about when he was denied the opportunity to even bid on ownership of the Oakland Athletics. 2005 was the year I started Word Tabernacle Church. 2005 was the same year that Reggie Jackson wanted to bid as owner of the Oakland Athletics, and they would not allow him to even bid. What is it about our society where they don't even want to give people an opportunity? I mean, how many of you agree with me that I may lose, but at least let me line up alongside of you? And if you outrun me, fine. If you out-negotiate me, fine. Right? If you outwit me, fine. But line me up together. Sit me at the same table. Give me the same opportunity. And then let the better person win. But that's not the society we live in. And so I don't know. It blows my mind. It breaks my heart. And I wanted to lead on the show with that today. So let me shift gears, because when I also, and I don't know what some of you are saying about this, so I don't know if y'all being quiet, but I'll look at some of your comments as I'm going through real quick. I'm 48. My mom shared with me that the nurses hesitated to bring me to her after my birth until my dad showed up in the hospital room. He's not even white, but a very fair-skinned East Indian. Listen, let me tell you something, Natasha. I was born 1965 at St. Mary's Hospital in Philadelphia. St. Mary's Hospital in Philadelphia does no longer exist. In 1965, St. Mary's Hospital was the only hospital that would allow birth to a biracial child. The only hospital that existed. The only place my mother could get treatment being pregnant by a black man was it was the Catholic Hospital in Philadelphia. So when people act like this stuff is not today, it's not recent, it's not in my lifetime, just not true. Melissa says no change. Racism still very present. Yep, I believe it. It's still here. You can go in certain restaurants. You get the looks like you're not supposed to be there because of your skin. Yep. 28 years old, graduated from a primarily white institution. Trust me, yes, it's still very much alive. And yes, there are some truly delusional people out there. Very true, and very true. You can feel it. He's repeating. In my hometown at 12, my friend was called a lover by my friend's mom, screaming from the porch for playing with us at the park. I was not all the way sure what happened, but it felt bad. Yeah, I mean, look, the story, he said he's repeating. I'm not sure what DeVita means by that. But I just wanted to raise up this issue. And I want to kind of keep in this vein a little bit. So I want to say 2 more things relative to like race today. And I'm sorry if it's heavy today, but it's just kind of, I saw that video and I just wanted to lean in on it. But when I leaned in on the video, I said to y'all, well, what are some of the things y'all want to talk to me about, and you want me to talk about? And I want to call out a group of people. And before I call you out, I want to just say this. There's a part of me that wants to assume the best. Okay, it's a part of me that wants to believe that, in a way, you're celebrating what we no longer are. There's a part of me that wants to believe that you're grateful that we're not subject to the brutality of plantations. There's a part of me that wants to believe that you're just grateful that we no longer exist under the yoke of Jim Crow. There's a part of me that wants to believe that you're grateful that we no longer have to go to a restaurant to say whites only. There's a part of me that believes that you no longer, that you're glad that you can sit at a lunch counter. There's a part of me that believes that Making eye contact with a white woman if you're a black man is not a lynchable offense anymore. But I don't know. You're saying, well, who are you talking about? I'm talking about, and listen, if this is you, I need you to chime in. I need you to let me know what you mean by this. I'm talking about the people who wear the I am not my ancestors t-shirt. I need to know who y'all are. Because let me tell you something. I am my ancestors. I want to know what you mean. What do you mean? I am not my ancestors. You know, because I've even seen where they've even gone further to be like, because these hands, I'll put hands on you. Do you really think that we come from an ancestry of people that did not fight, that did not bleed, that did not die, that did not struggle? I mean, I think even when we jokingly give credence to the idea that we didn't resist oppression, when we jokingly talk about we didn't resist racial violence, I think it is, I'm sorry, I think it's foolish. I think it's irresponsible. I think it feeds right into the hand of this society now that is trying to convince us that everything that happened centuries and centuries ago, that we no longer have to embrace it. We're no longer connected to it. I'm struck. So I need to know who those people are that wear that stuff. I want to know why you wear it. I want you to help me understand your side of it. So this is Tammy's fault, because Tammy was like, look, can you comment on this I'm not my ancestors comment? You know, and then she says, you know, when you discuss, can we point out that our ancestors were not weak people? So she's talking about seeing some things in Juneteenth that we're not our ancestors, we will fight. And so I want to just talk about some of that, y'all. National Geographic chimed in on something, and it gave credence and description to the ongoing push for freedom. And it said that, listen to what it said in Time magazine, National Geographic. Enslaved people didn't just engage in passive resistance against slaveholders. They planned and participated in armed revolts. Between the 17th and 19th centuries, they go on to say, enslaved Africans and African Americans in British North America and the United States staged hundreds of revolts. So I am struggling. So maybe y'all are giving me some answers. I know sometimes there's a delay here, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for some of the comments after I come back from break. But I want to know, I really want to know, who are the people that wear paraphernalia that says, I am not my ancestors? So let me be very clear. As a matter of fact, you know what? Has anyone seen one that says, I am my ancestors? I think, because if not, that's the t-shirt. If not that, if we not seen it, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I don't know who's going to buy one from me. I'm going to wear a t-shirt that says, I am my ancestors. And so, because when I get to thinking about even being a pastor in the Lord's church, man, let me tell you how awesome our ancestors are. I've started a church called Word Tabernacle Church. It's 19 years old. It's done pretty okay. But let me tell you how awesome my ancestors are. My ancestors, they didn't start a church. They started denominations. They started movements. They formed HBCUs. They opened up hospitals. They got education. When they were not able to go to a white school, you know what they did? They formed their own schools. They won against every odd and obstacle. They fought for a country that when they got back from fighting for their country were not even recognized by their country. And you ain't running around wearing something saying, I'm not my ancestors. Our ancestors, they built housing complexes. Our ancestors started banks. Our ancestors formed the first black insurance company. Our ancestors created black Wall Streets all over America. What black Wall Street you know, sir, since you're not your ancestor? I want to know the people. Point out for me, educate me on the people who are running around with "I am not my ancestors" on. Like, I really want to know. I know you got to be listening to Choice 92. Matter of fact, somebody listening to Choice 92 at 92.1 FM right now with a "I am not my ancestors" shirt on. I'm gonna take your call. I'm gonna take your call. You call me and let me know what is the logic. Because let me tell you something. The ancestors that you claim that you're not gave birth to the revolution that you claim to be. Did you hear me? The people you don't claim are the ones who've created the things you're claiming to create. The ancestors you claim that you are not, they have given birth to ideologies that we miss today. I can't tell you how many black entrepreneurs I have in my church. So many of them, so gifted, talented, great ideas. You know, their single biggest problem is, one of their biggest problems, how do I get my community to best support me? Well, your ancestors, the one you wearing that shirt about, I'm not my ancestors, they ain't had that problem. That's why they created Black Wall Street. They ain't have that problem. That's why they had banks. The funeral homes. I mean, it's amazing to me. Do you know one human being that wears a "I am not my ancestors" shirt that has started a college or university? Do you know one human being that's wearing a "I am not my ancestors" shirt that runs a multi-million-dollar corporation? Do you know one human being that is wearing an "I am not my ancestors" shirt that is leading a movement to bring people to equity, freedom, and opportunity? My ancestors, they got hoes so I could vote. They got beat so I could vote. My ancestors left the South to come to the North to try to create a way of life for their family. My ancestors worked minimum wages, fingers to the bone. They were sharecroppers, got cheated out of their money by the landowners. They made sacrifices so their kids could have something. They started not just churches, but denominations. Those are my ancestors. You know, we're not thinking people. And that's why the James Gailliard Show exists. The James Gailliard Show exists so I can push back on some of these cultural nuances that are literally holding us hostage mentally, emotionally. And so we gotta think through some of this stuff, y'all. We have to organize with all forms of inaccessibility in mind. And we've got to learn how to look at the work necessary and acknowledge that protesting is not a viable option for all activists. That just because somebody doesn't do it like you do it. That is the trick of the enemy. Let me get them to work against each other. It's the whole field Negro, house Negro mentality. It is the whole, let me so preoccupy them that somebody does it different than them, or maybe somebody has advanced a little further than them, that they will be so busy being jealous and envious and holding each other back that neither of them will focus on the fact that I'm really their problem. Y'all, we gotta do better. So I need y'all to point out for me the folk that's wearing shirts and paraphernalia that says I'm not my ancestors. And I need a handful of you to agree with me that I am very much my ancestors. All right. So shifting gears again, and I don't think they see it that way, Pastor. Okay, I like to know which way they see it. I want to know how they see it. I really want to know how they see it because, I mean, okay, your ancestors formed OIC. The same person running around wearing I'm not my ancestors shirt is the same person that's taking trucking certification from OIC, or the same person that is learning a trade from OIC. Well, your ancestors started OIC. So your ancestors are are Leon Sullivan, who, as pastor of Zion Baptist Church, built the first outdoor mall of the church, built townhomes for teachers because there was not adequate housing for African-American public school teachers in Philadelphia, formed a trust fund, and formed OIC, of which we celebrate one in Rocky Mount and one in Wilson. Those are your ancestors. And so when we begin looking at our culture and our context, we can't get drawn into the narrative of emotionalism. Somebody came up with some idea, Juneteenth or for whatever the reason. Let's do this shirt that says, "I'm not my ancestors because I'm going to lay hands on you." Well, Black Panther Party laid hands on you. Lots of people died in the fight laying hands. Everybody did it different. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King disagreed. There was disagreements with all types of African-American leadership and intellect. But when we disavow and disown each other, may my children never say that they are not their ancestors. May your children never say they're not you. I'm just not my mom. I'm not my daddy. You know what? I'm proud of my ancestors. And so I am my ancestors. I feel like a shirt. Division, whole sermon, why don't we support Black-owned businesses? I'm going to get to that in a minute. Somebody shouting out, "I am my ancestors." Y'all, I think that's going to be a shirt. I don't know who's going to wear one with me, but I think that's going to be a shirt. So let me shift gears then, because we talked about all of the advances of our ancestors, their ability to create Black Wall Street. Let me tell you, boy, I don't know. I'm going to make a lot of enemies with this show, I guess, but I just feel like there's a need for truth telling. I hope you'll share this. I hope you'll pass this on to somebody else. This is James Gailliard. You're listening and or watching the James Gailliard Show. I'm on Choice 92.1 FM every Monday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. talking about issues of politics and religion and sports and news, pop culture, anything that's going to get our mind churning. Let me talk a little bit about generational wealth, because that was something else that was communicated. Can you talk about generational wealth? We've talked about, and I don't know that y'all really want to have these conversations because, first of all, y'all know I'm real opinionated, but I try to allow my opinions to be formed and informed and not driven by emotion. Like I try to ask myself the why questions. So I'm going through the annals of history, and I'm thinking about generational wealth in the Black community, Black context. Because let me just say this, y'all. Nothing that we see as systemic or institutional racism is ever going to get addressed until there is first economic equity. Until the dollar issue gets addressed, food insecurity doesn't get addressed. Housing doesn't get addressed. Like, it has to be the premier conversation. But we don't really want to have that conversation. The reason we don't really want to have this conversation is because I don't know that we have the heart and the stamina to do what's needed. And I don't know if there's enough of us to band together to do it. So here's the truth of the matter. Here's the truth of the matter from James Gailliard's lens. The truth of the matter is that I don't know anybody in the Black community getting wealthy from Amazon or from Belks, right? So that means I have to start supporting the businesses of people that look like me so that wealth can then be created within our own context, right? So if we're going to look at real generational wealth, we have to stop funding people that oppress our communities. Whatever, we do it to save $1. But the issue is we don't know how many dollars the oppression cost us. We know how many dollars I saved, but we don't know how much the savings really cost me. So in the back end, so this is the issue when, you know what, I got to take a break. See, I had to pay these bills, y'all. So this is James Gailliard. You're listening to the James Gailliard Show, 92.1 Choice FM. I'm going to come back. We're going to finish up this conversation on generational wealth. Share this with somebody. We'll be right back.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.
Well, it's been a little hot in here today. You know, it's funny. I usually come in studio with a blazer on or a light jacket because it's chilly in here, and I have warmed up a whole lot. So we've been talking about Reggie Jackson, his comments recently. We've been talking about the viral nature of those comments and how people are shocked that this was just 50 years ago. I think he has put a new fire under us to recognize some of the dynamics that we have to deal with. And so that led us into a conversation about some recent things that have happened, which led us into a conversation about generational wealth. That led us into a conversation about our ancestry and our history. And I really appreciate Christopher McCoy's comment, because he's probably one of the younger people that's on right now. I guess him and LaShawn might be kind of right there together. But I really appreciate your comment, and I appreciate your boldness to talk about today. We, the younger generation, are largely hyper-focused on our individual lives, which is partially why we're stagnant. So that's such a good word. I would love, Christopher, I want to get with like your generation. I don't know how old you are. I can look it up in my system. And LaShawn, I can look that up. I want to, not that I'm not valuing everybody, but I want to have some intergenerational conversations. I want to have some, conversations with people in their 30s. I want to have some conversations with people in their 20s and just kind of talk about it. And so, because I think it'll be valuable. Amazon supplies private prisons millions of dollars in revenue at the expense of incarcerated men. Yeah. Particularly of color. Amazon expatriates no dollars back into our communities. So that's where we landed today. Generational wealth. I'm clear. I'm gonna be clear that I don't have the answer to my own question, but I'm gonna research it. And I'm gonna have an answer, and I want to delve deep down in this. I'm wondering if there was ever a time in the life of America where significant generational wealth was created post, meaning after desegregation. I'm sorry, post-segregation, desegregation, segregation, post-segregation. And so I'm wondering, like, when we had no option but to have dinner at the Black-owned restaurant, did more of us, we ate there because we couldn't go to the white restaurant. But then when we had the opportunity to go to the white restaurant, we functioned like the white restaurant had better food, or maybe they had better prices because they had a bigger supply, because they had a better deal because of their race. And then the black restaurants started losing businesses. The black retailer started losing business. The black doctor started losing business. The black attorney started losing business. And as a result, inadvertently, the very laws that were designed to make things equitable really damaged our community. And so I don't know that there's ever been a time in our nation where there has been wealth created in the black community where we were not also supported by ourselves in the black community. And I know I'm not suggesting that we don't market and promote our businesses and our products to all people, because I think we should. But I do think it is incumbent upon us as a race of people to not fund our own oppression and to be thoughtful about, maybe I can get it cheaper somewhere else, but at what cost? I just said something. I hope you heard me. Maybe I can get it cheaper somewhere else, but at what cost? In other words, just because I'm saving a couple dollars does not mean that it's really not costing me more on the back end. I mean, when I was growing up, a chicken sandwich, man, was 2 pieces of white bread and, a breast or a thigh and some hot sauce wrapped up in some aluminum foil. And it was usually coming out of somebody's kitchen in the middle of the block. And I thought 100% of that money went back into our community. And then that mama, that grandmother, she used that money to buy a little candy to give to the kids. She used that money to get herself a little car so she could get her own groceries. I want to ask you, what do we value and benefit? Let me educate you on this real quick, and I'll let you go. And we'll talk about more on this in the future. Now, I'm going to be people coming for me, so y'all need to just know I'm really trying to liberate all people. But I got to address people that are most sinned against, which are people that look like me. I want you to be familiar with the name Variety Wholesalers. Variety Wholesalers is a wholly owned private corporation owned by a guy named Art Pope. Art Pope was a Republican, is a Republican operative. Art Pope is responsible for some of the most damaging legislation in the North Carolina General Assembly. He's responsible for behind the scenes funding and masterminding the underfunding of public education. He has masterminded all types of public policy that has been damaging to inner city communities. Now, some of y'all are going to really dislike me for this. You know how Art Pope made his money? Roses. He owns Super 10, Maxway, and Roses. And you look at those, we flood places like that because what they have is cheap. What they have is convenient. But what we don't know is behind the scenes, the people that own the store are taking the profits of the money we bring to fund a political agenda and an economic agenda that is holding back our kids and grandkids. And so in the months ahead, I'm going to be calling some of these out, y'all. And I know y'all didn't want to answer about how do we create generational wealth. But we're going to have to stop funding our oppressors. And I got a whole list of them. You know, that I don't shop in Roses. I do not shop in Roses because I'm not supporting Art Pope. It's just that simple. I'm done with it. Y'all can say whatever you want to say about me. That's where I am. I got other places that I refuse to spend a penny to in as well. And so we're going to stop looking at this and looking at who owns what and what are they doing with the profit. And does that profit help or hurt my community? And then what am I willing to do about it? Look, I'm out of time, but I'm not out of talk. I'm out of clock, but I'm not out of content. This is James Gailliard. You've been listening to the James Gailliard Show. I've been hitting a lot of controversial stuff today. This is what I'm going to ask you to do. Share this. And I'm going to read the comments after the fact. Talk about them with your friends. Call me on it. I try to give you data today. I try to give you data every show. So call me on it. Tell me where my data is wrong. Tell me how my data is wrong and then what we can do about it. So I love y'all. Y'all are everything. I love being on this show. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was informative. Thanks to Choice 92.1 FM. This is James Gailliard. I'm out. I'll see you next Monday.
The James Gailliard Show on Choice FM.